welcome you to Dyslexia Awareness Day. We are thrilled to have with us today both Representative Jason Ortitay as well as Senator Ryan Ahmet, whose legislative efforts are really driving forward a way for better instruction and resources for our teachers, our struggling readers, and especially our students with dyslexia. In addition to our esteemed legislators, we're very excited to welcome experts Dr. Pam Kastner and Laura Boyce, who are experts in the area of structured literacy, educational advocacy, as well as teacher preparation. Along with those experts, we have our dignitaries with us today, and they would be Deborah Cheskis, Brennan Kaplan, and Jessica McKee. They're all here because they are dedicated to advancing the cause of improving literacy instruction and assuring that every child across our state has the education that they should receive, and that every teacher has the tools and the resources to teach all of our children. So thank you for coming today, and thank you for joining in this very important conversation. And I'm going to turn it over now to Representative Ortitay.
Just making sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for making the trip up here to the Capitol here in Harrisburg. It's always great to see this group of people here together. As one of the prime sponsors here in the House of House Bill 998, the mirror bill, I believe Senator Ahmet will be coming here shortly, Senate Bill 801. They're the same bill. Senate Bill 801 is the one that moved through the Senate. We've been working on that bill for quite some time now. I think our advance on early literacy has been in the works now for almost 5 years. We've had some victories along the way. We've had some defeats along the way. But I'm happy to say, as of yesterday morning, Senate Bill 801 moved out of the House Education Committee. We are getting a lot closer to getting this signed into law. We're hoping next week we can get the bill passed through the House and on the governor's desk for his signature. Now, there might be some changes to it. We'll work that out as we go through the process, but we have never been closer to getting structured literacy and early literacy legislation done in the state of Pennsylvania than we are right here, right now. And that's a testament to all of you calling your state reps, calling your state senators, calling the governor's office, making sure that this is a priority. This bill does a lot of different things and really helps with every student across the state. This isn't about picking winners or losers. We want to help every student learn how to read by the end of 3rd grade. And those that we may have missed along the way, we want to help them too. We're coming after them next. As soon as we're done with this K-3 introduction, getting the foundations in place, there will be legislation to help those in grades 4 through 12 catch up and get back on pace. But screening is a really big part of this bill. We're really hoping to get that aspect done, because if we can catch this early, how many years can we help these kids with? How can we increase their quality of their life moving forward with the rest of their education? It impacts so many different aspects of their life, and it helps with their parents too, and parents' anxiety and trying to help their kids learn how to read and excel in school. So that's something we can all be proud of. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep working to get this legislation across the finish line. So I'm happy to see all of you here today. Those of you that are behind me, make sure you go see your state reps. Right now, that's important. We need yes votes on this bill to get it to the governor's desk, and then call the governor or go up to his office and say hi and say, hey, can you support early literacy? Because there's not a single person in this state that doesn't want to see kids learn how to read. It's not a political issue. I believe Governor Shapiro will sign the bill. He is supportive, but let's stay on him. Let's stay on the House. Let's get this bill done. Let's get it done by the end of this month so we can get this process moving forward. And next year we can start over and start working on some other stuff that'll help all of our kids learn how to read throughout the entire Commonwealth of PA. Thank you for having me here today. I really appreciate it. I'm really excited about what's going on here in the state capitol, and keep up the good work. So thank you.
Good morning. My name is Brennan Kaplan. I'm 14 years old and I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I attend Pine Ridge Middle School and I'm in 8th grade. I was diagnosed with dyslexia after my second year of kindergarten. I remember sitting in class in the book corner and holding a book that I knew I could not read, but wanting to be able to read it so badly. I used to pretend that I could read so that other kids did not know I could not read. This is a trick that I used for many years to come. I was so disappointed and upset with myself, I would figure out a word on one page, and on the next page, I would have no idea what the same word was. I would have to start all over again. It was like taking one step forward and 3 steps back. I told my mom that the letters looked like they were dancing on the page. Since I still couldn't read after my second year of kindergarten, my parents decided to get me evaluated for a learning difference. Soon after I was diagnosed, I started working with my tutor 1 to 3 times a week, even in the summer. Learning to read really improved my confidence. I'm now taking honors classes and read about 15 books last year when before I could not even get through one. I would not be able to do this without the help of my tutor. Because of my experiences, I know how important it is for struggling readers to get the help that they need. Dyslexia has negatively impacted me because it sometimes takes me longer to understand new things. It can also be very challenging when teachers do not know how to explain things in a different way. And I can tell you that speaking louder or slower or repeating the same exact thing does not help me to understand. I've also had many classmates assume that I am dumb because I take extra time or need extra help. That can wear on one's confidence. Another way that dyslexia is challenging is because I cannot spell for the life of me. Because of this, I am eternally grateful for spell check. Because I have been lucky enough to get the help that I need, I can now see that there are good things about having dyslexia. I have learned how to persevere. I'm also more empathetic to other people's struggles. I would like all stakeholders to know that spending time and money on helping kids with dyslexia will result in more confident and successful young adults. The educational system is not designed for those of us who learn differently. Standardized tests are not our strong suit, but the schools seem to to focus on these scores. We are then told we did not do well on the test and we should be placed in lower level classes. We are smart, creative, intuitive, and athletic students whose intelligence should not be defined by standardized tests. Finally, I would like for kids who have dyslexia to know to never give up, because they will learn to read, write, and spell. I would also like to remind them that they are not dumb or disappointing anyone because they learn differently. But most of all, they are not defined by dyslexia.
Brennan, great job. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for telling your story. It's so critically important. I want to express my thanks to all of you for being here and advocating for literacy. I want to thank my colleague, Jason Ortitay, over in the House. You heard from Jason already, but no one in this building has been a bigger champion for all of you and a champion for early literacy here in Pennsylvania. And I want to express my thanks to you for your leadership. We have made significant investments in K through 12 public education in the last few years, appropriately so. However, the reality is math scores are down, reading scores are down, and even attendance is down. Almost half of fourth graders across our Commonwealth are reading below grade level, a challenge that exists in every corner of this state, from urban cities to rural communities. Currently, 1 in 5 American adults struggle with reading basic sentences. Studies show that childhood reading difficulties can produce long-term effects and dramatically impact someone's chances at success. Senate Bill 801 and Jason Ortitay's companion bill in the House would use a 3-pronged approach to implement an evidence-based program to improve early literacy in Pennsylvania. First, it would bolster reading instruction with evidence-based reading curricula. Second, This is critically important. It would identify struggling readers via universal screening within the first 30 days of school. Finally, schools and educators would use screening data to implement intervention plans to prevent children from falling behind. When states take this comprehensive approach to improve literacy, positive outcomes for students rise. Florida, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and others have all showed and continue to show us what's possible when a comprehensive law is adopted and implemented with fidelity. For example, after Mississippi's literacy program was passed in 2013, that state rose from 49th in fourth grade reading to 21st in the nation. After 2 years of statewide teacher training in the science of reading, the latest assessment results have also showed that North Carolina students in grades K through 4 made greater mid-year gains than students in other states using the very same assessment, with the percentage of kindergarten students meeting the benchmark almost doubling from 28% to 56%. Early identification, which would be required under the legislation Representative Ortitay and I have sponsored, is critical if those with dyslexia are to learn to read and write proficiently and go on to lead rewarding, productive, and fulfilling lives. With 15 to 20% of the population having some of the symptoms of dyslexia, including slow or inaccurate reading, poor spelling, poor writing, or the tendency to mix up similar words, our legislation would benefit many Pennsylvanians on their learning journey. Senate Bill 801 and the work that Jason is doing in the House has been shown to improve student outcomes and boost early literacy. Senate Bill 801 is a smart investment in our kids and in the future of this Commonwealth. It also represents a significant step forward. Let's stand here together and state loudly and clearly that a diagnosis of dyslexia is not your destiny. It need not be a barrier to success nor a barrier to opportunity in Pennsylvania. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. It's critically important.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Devorah Cheskis, and it is an honor to speak in front of all of you today. I'm a varsity student athlete who maintains a 3.85 GPA. I am an active member in Susquehanna Township High School's Student Government Association. I'm enrolled in 4 AP classes, including AP English, Language, and Composition, and a member of multiple National Honor Societies. I am a proud middle child, and I am dyslexic. As you can see, dyslexia is part of my story, but it is not all of it. I have written a poem that I would like to share with all of you that encapsulates my feelings on my dyslexia to a T. I find myself in class taking notes. Notes I do not know how to pronounce. Notes I only know how to spell because they're up on the board. For most, notes are for explaining things. For me, notes are for my questions. It's not the fear of being called on to read out loud in class. It's not the fear of never being able to show that I know the material because of my silly mistakes in my work. It's not the fear of sounding out words and only finding gibberish. And it's definitely not the fear of your friends making fun of your gibberish. It might be the fear of seeing your peers' hands high in the air while you're confused only because you read the question wrong. It is most definitely knowing that there's a reason why you can't comprehend the question right the first way. Knowing that there's a label, a reason, an explanation that highlights my personal struggle to the rest of the world, that is what makes it so real. But why me? What did I do wrong? Am I just not that smart? What did I do to deserve this extra struggle present in every moment of my life? The only answer that growing up has taught me is because. Because I can push through the frustration. Because I have learned to laugh at my faults. Because I have learned to find the strength in every single one of my weaknesses. Because I had the ability to embrace who I am. In my experience, dyslexia can go one of two ways. One, you can learn how to learn the way the world has taught you to learn. And two, you can find a way to look at the world in ways most call unimaginable. I plan to change the world with my dyslexia. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. It's such an honor to be here with you this morning. My name's Dr. Pam Kastner. Thank you for being here today as we gather to talk about one of the most fundamental rights that every child is entitled to, the right to read. But today I'm not here to speak to you just about students' rights. I'm here to talk about another essential right, the right of every educator to receive the preparation and training they need to teach every child to read effectively. Every teacher deserves to know the science of reading, and every child deserves a teacher who knows it. We all know that literacy is a foundation of academic success, personal growth, and participation in society. We've got to teach our children to read. It is the greatest act of leadership in society. And we, all of us gathered here today and beyond this majestic rotunda, the educators, the legislators, the literacy organizations, and families, we are the gatekeepers of our child's future. But what happens when we as teachers don't have the tools and the training necessary to open that gate? Here's the reality. Too many teachers enter classrooms every year without the knowledge and practices to evidence-based reading instruction. We're handed the keys to a student's future, but often without the training and practices that research has shown to be the most effective: structured literacy. Structured literacy is not a passing trend. It is not a pendulum swing. It is grounded in decades of research from cognitive science, linguistics, and education. It emphasizes the explicit, systematic teaching of phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. It addresses the needs of all learners, including those with dyslexia or other reading difficulties. In short, structured literacy equips teachers with the proven methods to teach every child to read, not just the children who learn to read easily. Our teacher preparation programs are a key lever and solution, an essential partner in aligning with structured literacy principles. Pennsylvania has recognized the essential role teacher preparation programs play with Act 55, which mandates teacher preparation programs include training in structured literacy, and mandates that the Pennsylvania Department of Education establish a program for professional development in structured literacy. In addition, Pennsylvania has the most universities and colleges accredited by the International Dyslexia Association, indicating their alignment with the rigorous, evidence-based knowledge and practice standards, the very standards that Pennsylvania's program framework guidelines or competencies are aligned to. If we want every child in Pennsylvania to be literate, then we must continue to partner with and support our higher education institutions to embed both coursework and in the practices, in their practicums and in student teaching, the practices that align with structured literacy to align with robust knowledge and practices aligned to structured literacy. As Dr. Louisa Motes has stated, teaching reading is rocket science, but it is also established science with clear, specific, practical instructional strategies that all teachers should be taught and supported in using. Every educator deserves the right to be prepared to succeed in their role. This is not just for the sake of their own professional fulfillment, but for the success of the children they serve. When teachers have access to structured literacy training, they can meet the needs of diverse learners, they can break through barriers and unlock the potential in every student, especially those who might otherwise fall behind. We must advocate for systemic change. Teacher preparation programs must be redesigned to align with the science of reading and structured literacy. Professional development for in-service teachers must be prioritized and focused on equipping educators with the skills and strategies that work. It is not enough to expect teachers to seek out this training on their own. It must be provided as a right because it is essential for their success. It is essential for their students' future. We must remember that teaching is an act of justice. When we arm teachers with the right tools and knowledge, we are fighting for the right of every child to become a proficient reader. When teachers are properly prepared and have the instructional tools to do so, they can do what they are called to do, ensure that no child is left behind. So what does that mean in practice? It means that our instructional materials must be based on structured literacy, as Senator Ahmet and House Representative Ortitay have proposed in Senate Bill 801 and House Bill 998. However, at the present, many educators are handed materials that simply do not reflect these principles. Too often, teachers are provided with outdated, inconsistent, or incomplete resources that fail to align with what we know about how children learn to read. When materials are not aligned to evidence-based, they create confusion, frustration, and lost learning opportunities for both teachers and students. This is not just a matter of convenience or a minor convenience. It is an equity issue. When instructional materials fail to reflect the best research and evidence, the students who suffer the most are often those who need the most support. We see this in students from underserved communities, English language learners, and students with learning disabilities. They are the ones who pay the price for inadequate resources, and their futures are too valuable to allow this to continue. Educators deserve better. We deserve materials that allow us to teach effectively, empower our students, and close the reading gap. High quality, evidence-based reading instruction gives teachers the confidence they know teaching all students to lead to success. When teachers have the right materials, they can focus on what they do best, teaching, guiding, and supporting students as they become confident, capable readers. But let me be clear, this is not just about buying new textbooks or adopting a new curriculum. It is absolutely, fundamentally aligning our instructional materials with the science of reading. It is about ensuring that every piece of content we use, every lesson we teach, is designed to help students build the foundational skills they need to become proficient readers. Today, we stand together for the right of every educator to have access to the preparation and training aligned with structured literacy and to the high-quality instructional materials that result in every child becoming a reader. The time for silence on this important fundamental right has passed, and then some. One of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Holly Baker Hill, who stated, "Silence is permission. When in doubt, I open my mouth because children can't." Let's stand for every teacher's right to be equipped with the knowledge and practices they need to change lives, and the right to literacy, and to act and speak. And most importantly, let us stand for every child's right to read.
Good morning. My name is Jessica McKee, and I'm the current president of the International Dyslexia Association Pennsylvania. I'm going to switch it up here a little bit. So first I want to say thanks to Bryn and Devorah, who told their stories earlier, told stories of success coming from families that were fortunate and affluent enough to provide services for their child outside of their local school district, or receive services, live close enough to receive services at a children's dyslexia center that had space for them to receive the appropriate instruction outside of school. My story is going to talk about why what Pam just said about teachers needing the right tools, the right knowledge, and the right education is so incredibly critical for our students. It's not just necessary, but it is critical. So I have 2 dyslexic children at home. I have 5 altogether. One is 18 and one is 8. One child's dyslexia story is just beginning, while my other, in terms of education, is ending. Our story starts full of promise with early entry into special education services in kindergarten for a speech delay, and in first grade, diagnosed with a specific learning disability in math, writing, and reading, and by the end of that summer, we had a dyslexia diagnosis. In terms of early identification, this could not have gone better. We were certain that his teachers and the school were going to know exactly what to do. We were in good hands. The experts had the diagnosis, and they were going to fix it. 10 years and a lot of tears later, Aiden graduated high school. A psychoeducational evaluation completed that year showed he was still in the 0.7th percentile for math. 99.3% of his peers were better than him. And in the 5th percentile for reading, despite having average intelligence and over a decade of special education services. He left high school with skills equivalent to elementary and middle school students, yet he didn't let that stop him from pursuing higher education at a trade school here in Pennsylvania this fall. On day 4 of this fall semester, I received a text from him. And I'm sorry, I can't do this. This was a mistake. I don't know what to do with my life. I only went to college to prove to people I wasn't stupid, but I am. It goes on to say, nothing here is making sense, but we already put money into this, so I have to. And if I drop out, I prove I am nothing. If I drop out, I prove I am nothing. Fast forward to day 20, and I receive this message. I think I should drop out. I'm not happy here. My mental health is at an all-time low, to the point where I'm scared to be alone. I asked my husband to reach out to him, and later I received a photo of their conversation, where my husband is encouraging my son to keep trying, to keep accessing resources. And this is his response. No, man, I don't think I can. Saturday was almost my last day ever. Last day on earth ever, if you need to be more clear here. When schools fail to educate students, and let's not mince word, this is the school district's responsibility to educate our children. They cause irreparable emotional trauma to those students they fail. Students like Aiden, who are now left wondering whether his life is too hopeless to even keep living. And unfortunately, he is not alone. According to research out of the University of Toronto, the lead professor, Esme Fuller-Thompson, says learning disabilities such as dyslexia cast a very long shadow. Adults with learning disabilities still had 46% higher odds of having attempted suicide than their peers without learning problems, even when we took into account a wide range of other risk factors. The research also shows that the prevalence of lifetime suicide attempts among those with a specific learning disability was much higher than those without, 11% versus 2.7. Another study in the Journal of Child Psychiatry and Human Development found that youth receiving special education were significantly more likely to report a suicide attempt in the past year relative to peers in child welfare, juvenile justice, alcohol and drug services, and county mental health services, all populations at a relatively high risk for suicide. Let's speak plainly here, folks. Our children and adults with dyslexia and learning disabilities are attempting suicide at greater rates than many other high-risk groups. And I want to leave you just with one last story before I close, and this was shared a few weeks ago by a leading expert in trauma, psychiatrist Steve Dykstra. Dr. Dykstra serves on many high-level committees in his home state of Wisconsin, and this is what he shared. I am part of a team reviewing the violent death of a 17-year-old boy who was leading a risky and marginalized life. A review of records showed he was identified with a specific learning disability in reading at an early age, but he was never effectively treated. In an official document that will be shared with the CDC under category of other, we specified failure to properly remediate reading difficulties in the early grades as an official factor in his violent death. It was unanimously agreed that had he been taught to read, he would have lived his life differently. Milwaukee County, Wisconsin has officially stated to the Center for Disease Control that a 17-year-old boy died, at least in part, because we failed to use proper methods to teach him to read 10 years ago. educational trauma, mental health issues, and suicide attempts do not need to be a part of the experience of our dyslexic children and adults. And as Harvard neuroscientist Dr. Nagin Gab says, dyslexia itself is not hazardous to anyone's health. It really is the fact that they are not being identified, they are not being diagnosed, and they are not getting the services that they need. And this is why we're here today, because this is what we're fighting for, these bills, so that they can get the services that they need. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you to everyone who has shared their story and to the Dyslexia Awareness Day organizers for putting together this amazing event. I'm Laura Boyce. I'm the Executive Director of Teach Plus Pennsylvania. I'm also a former high school English and history teacher and an elementary and middle school principal. And I've been thinking a lot about freedom lately. Our governor likes to talk a lot about real freedom, and really there's no more American value than freedom. I believe that giving students the ability to read is freedom. That gives them the ability to chart their own course. As we've heard, not having that freedom can have devastating consequences. And I strongly believe that freedom and literacy are inseparable. Frederick Douglass said, "Once you learn to read, you will be forever free." And there's a reason why many southern states before the Civil War made it illegal for enslaved people to learn to read, because they understood the connection between freedom and reading. We recently held focus groups across Pennsylvania. Our teachers interviewed over 200 students and parents about how they defined success and what they saw as the role of schools in helping kids achieve their dreams. What we found was that parents and kids had big dreams for themselves, and at the heart of those dreams was an expectation that schools are preparing every student to be able to read on level as a prerequisite for all of the other wild aspirations that they had for their students. We know that the ability to read on grade level by the end of third grade or the beginning of fourth grade is perhaps the most predictive academic indicator of any that has been studied. It's correlated with high school graduation rates, future earnings, even life expectancy, as we heard about. So it's not the only matter of success that matters, but it is one that is hugely consequential. In Pennsylvania, according to the nation's report card, in fourth grade reading, a class of 20 students, only 7 of those students would be able to read proficiently. Again, this is the nation's report card, the only national benchmark of reading ability. In a classroom made up of entirely all black students, it would be only 2 in 20, 11%. In an all Hispanic class, it would be 4, 20%. And in a classroom of all economically disadvantaged students, only 4, 18% would read on grade level. In Pennsylvania, our NAEP scores are lower than they were 20 years ago, and we have the largest racial and socioeconomic achievement gaps in the entire nation. There's no way to look at how our students are currently performing in reading, whether they have been diagnosed with dyslexia or not, and say that the status quo is working. We must do more. As Senator Ament mentioned, states like Mississippi have charted a path for us and gone from last in the country to near the top by implementing comprehensive early literacy policies, as has been proposed by Senate Bill 801. We're excited to see Senate Bill 801 moving forward in the House this week. However, we know that it must be passed in full along with an appropriation if we are going to actually see the kinds of gains we've seen in other states. We are calling on Governor Shapiro to propose $100 million for early literacy in next year's state budget to fund SB 801 and put Pennsylvania students on a pathway to real freedom. I've had the experience as a teacher of not being trained in the science of reading and seeing my students struggle and feeling powerless to support them. I've then had the experience of getting trained in the science of reading and seeing the success that comes with that. I have taught my son to read. He's learned how to read at 3 using some of these principles, and it is rocket science in many ways, but it is also something that is learnable when we give our teachers the tools. And so I want to again say that our job is not done until Senate Bill 801 is passed in full and funded. And so today I call on the General Assembly to pass Senate Bill 801 this month. And any parts of the legislation that don't make it across the finish line should be reintroduced next session and passed by next spring. I call on Governor Shapiro to propose $100 million to fund SB 801 in his budget proposal this February. And I call on our leaders in the General Assembly from both parties and both caucuses to come together with the governor to fund Senate Bill 801 in next year's state budget by the June deadline. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free. Let's make real freedom a reality for our students in Pennsylvania this fall and in 2025. Thank you.
Before we close out today, we wanted to give everyone who maybe might have a question the ability to ask that question to one of the many experts who is here today. So, any questions from anyone? Yes.
Just go through exactly what the status is on these bills right now.
Sure.
So that we know exactly what we're saying to our representatives.
Sure.
and
So the question was, would someone be able to, and I'm going to point at Representative Ortitay, go through each of the bills and tell exactly what the status is at the moment?
So thank you. Representative Flanagan, why don't you come over here too? So Representative Flanagan and I are the co-prime sponsors of House Bill 998. It is the same bill as Senate Bill 801. Our bill, unfortunately, did not move in the House, and it's not going to move anytime this year, which is okay. But we have Senate Bill 801, which is the same language. That bill has already passed the Senate in its entirety, and right now it has passed the House Education Committee. It is now sitting on the floor, which I don't think it's been marked for tomorrow, but my guess is will be marked for second consideration next week, and then hopefully final consideration the day after that. So that's the status of that bill. Once it is done, if it is changed in any way, it will have to go back to the Senate for concurrence for an up or down vote, and then it can go to the governor's desk. If it's not changed, it can go right to the governor's desk for his signature. But yeah, that's generally where we are. But Justin, he just got here, but he is the co-prime sponsor of the House version of it, and has been a fierce advocate, at least helping us in the House to get this language even moving.
Yeah, really. Representative, thank you so much, Representative Ortitay. Yeah, I was a mental health and child advocate before I joined the General Assembly, and you know, in Representative Ortitay's first cut at this back in 2019, I think my organization, Pennsylvania Partnerships for Children at the time, was an advocate to increase the rates of literacy that we see among our school children. And so as an advocate, I've supported this. As a member now, we're trying to get this over the finish line. There likely will be some agreed to language that we'll look at for next week, and hopefully that process goes smoothly. And again, as Representative Ortitay said, you know, all the parties will agree. It'll go back to the Senate for concurrence once that new language is put in. And then we're actually going to give the teachers the tools they need to be able to teach literacy in a meaningful way and make sure our students can read properly, and it's going to be a game changer for students across the Commonwealth. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Any other questions? Okay, then I just have one last thing that I'd like to share with you. This flyer is over on the tables here. It was created by Laura Boyce and Teach Plus, so we thank her for that. On the back side, there's 2 QR codes. This first QR code sends you to a letter that you can then forward to your senator and or representative, or both, to encourage them to consider and pass Senate Bill 801 as is. If you happen to belong to an organization, this second QR code is a letter that you can sign on to that your organization will actively pursue the passage of Senate Bill 801, and it's a letter that you can send to everyone that's in your organization. So please stop over to these tables, either take one or click a picture of it because it'll take you to the QR. And as Dr. Kastner said, the time to be silent has passed. So please check this out.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Rosette Roth. I'm with Decoding Dyslexia Pennsylvania. Thank you all for attending our Pennsylvania Dyslexia Awareness Day event titled Literacy is Freedom. My fellow committee members and I have worked tirelessly with other organizations and legislators and professionals to bring the urgent need for science of reading legislation to everybody's attention. I personally have been representing Decoding Dyslexia Pennsylvania and working with Pennsylvania branch IDA on a Dyslexia Awareness Day here on these Capitol steps for over a decade. While we are making progress, we have much more work to do here in Pennsylvania. We appreciate the support of this year's coalition of organizations as well. For my kids, for your kids, for all of Pennsylvania, we need to bring the science of reading to all students. Our future depends on it. Thank you to our speakers and dignitaries for sharing your personal stories and showing others what direction education needs to go. Thanks to Representative Ortitay, Senator Aument, and for legislation on the House and Senate sides, and the co-sponsors and all supporters for bringing this important legislation to the floor and not giving up. Thank you also to Senator Fleming, who is my senator, and we appreciate you speaking. Please visit the tables, like Jackie said, and use the QR codes. Reach out to your reps, reach out to your senators. Please ask the governor to get this money passed as well. The budget will help get this to the finish line. Together, we can all make a difference. Pennsylvania needs to guarantee literacy for all. Thank you.